Hello, Socrates at Saddlebrook. When I left you last time, I was on my way to headquarters to get caught up on the latest research on DNA. Well, I did, and I was totally blown away about what I found out. The latest scientific discoveries about DNA are totally rewriting the standard materialistic explanation for the origin of life. This has been that's been the dominant view for the past 100 years. The empirical evidence is now showing that the assumption of abiogenesis, life coming from non-life, is disproven. Today I'm going to share that information with you, and it's nothing short of breathtaking. It's, in my view, will be the turning point in the origin of life debate. What has been discovered inside the DNA molecule, basically the secret of life, and its associated machinery that is driven by this DNA, it will necessitate, in my opinion, a major paradigm shift in the Academy's view at some point. Their insistence now that, quote, there is no design in nature. That's the way it's been for 150 years. No design in nature, only the appearance of design. That view will become history. The evidence will no longer support that assumption. I'm going to present this evidence and this information in 2 sessions to you. Today, I will reveal that the living cell possesses a vocabulary, a language, an instruction manual that directs life within the cell. And that evidence, that instruction manual, has to come from a mind. DNA demonstrates intelligence. Then in the next session, I will show the machinery inside the cell that's being driven by this instruction manual, by this intelligence, is a purposeful design, not an evolutionary appearance of design. Now, you probably wondered what has taken me so long to post this next video cast. I was at headquarters the whole time doing research and lecturing. I went there for a week, but when I was there, I found out that several of my colleagues see these new discoveries too, and are starting to share with me that they don't know what's going on either. And they were not up on intelligent design. They wanted me to do a seminar series on what intelligent design is, the things I've been teaching you in the video cast these past several months. So this has been a wonderful experience. As you know, my view is not the view of the Academy, and is certainly not the view of my senior management either. I mean, after all, they want to keep their funding going, and I want to keep my job. But so far, I've been allowed to do this series as long as it's off-site and it's after hours. Now, I've been lecturing on the topics that I've been video casting to you these past several months through the Socrates website. And some of my colleagues have caught up on this, and they say, we want to know more about this. We want to have a discussion about it. So in fact, I've been doing the whole series, Has Science Rediscovered a Creator? And I've already presented to them the first 4 topics, and I came up with new slides that will accompany those presentations. So I'm going to give you those slides too in my next upload. Hopefully these slides will be a complement to the previous video cast that I've done. So look for these bonus posts in the months to come. Now, while this window of opportunity at headquarters lasts, I don't know how long that's going to be. But I won't have to do my surreptitious video cast from the office here. Instead, I'll be filming the live headquarters presentations, the seminar series, and we'll put them on the website for the future topics, along with a video cast commentary that I'm doing now. So you'll see this new format today. I hope this works out. As you must have figured out by now, I'm going much deeper into the subject matter than I originally intended with the Socrates at Saddlebrook presentations. At first, I was going to cover all 7 topics with just one video cast per month, but each topic now has exploded into several parts. I mean, today, for example, will be my 4th video cast on just the origin of life. So to accommodate this expansion, I've extended this release schedule from the original way out, and I'm planning to do all 7 topics on an extended monthly time frame, but much deeper. And I hope you find that this deeper and richer content is worth the wait. Now, make sure you're subscribed to the free videocast on the Socrates at Saddlebrook website, because you won't want to miss the notification as each of these new episodes and uploads become available. Now, what I want to do is pick up where we left off last time. I'll briefly review where we left off last time. We studied abiogenesis, that is, life coming from non-life. That was number 4 in the series, Origin of Life, and it was part 2. Third videocast, but it was part 2. And it's contention that dead chemicals on the early Earth gave rise to life through chance encounters of molecules in the primordial soup. Now, abiogenesis is also called chemical evolution. You might want to go back on the website to review the last videocast. That's Origin of Life Part 2. Despite the fact that abiogenesis is the Academy's official story, it has not been demonstrated by a long shot, not even in principle. It's just been assumed as it's consistent with their materialistic philosophy. In fact, the official biogenesis story is assumed to be true in spite of the evidence. Well, why the assumption then? In my view, because it fits the atheistic materialistic philosophy of the Academy. It's a perfect example of ideology trumping evidence. And worse yet, debate in the Academy is not even allowed. It's just repressed and censored. I don't know how long my lecture series will be allowed without consequences, and even though it's being held off-site and after hours, but we'll worry about that later. Eventually, I'm sure they'll clamp down on me, unless they change their minds pretty soon, and I'll probably be forced to make a career decision. Will I make videocasts surreptitiously again after that? Perhaps. How brave will I be? I don't know. But let's just keep on proceeding with what the evidence shows. Today and in the next session, I make the scientific case for a creator based on this new empirical evidence. It's a positive argument. It's not a negative argument. I've been giving negative arguments for abiogenesis. This is a positive argument about what we know about nature and what we can empirically verify. And together with the negative arguments I made last time, a compelling case is now made for the intelligent design of life. So let's get on with today's session. DNA. What is it? What does it reveal about the origin of life? Okay, we're going to do a Socrates investigation today on the origin of life. We said last week the answers are not in the origin of life research. It's really just stopped, basically. You'll still read a lot of articles. We had some of you have contacted me and given me some articles of research that's going on. It looks like very promising, amino acids from outer space and all this stuff. These articles, when you really look into them, we're talking about a building block versus the World Tower, the World Trade Center. Yes, there's building blocks. Everything's made out of chemistry. Yes, there's amino acids that come in on meteors and comets from outer space. And yes, we have created a few amino acids in the laboratory. It's nothing compared to what we have to go. We're not even at the 1% level. I mean, just discovering some chemicals and saying they go together doesn't mean anything as far as life goes. It means something when you put sodium and chlorine together to get salt, because you understand the chemical bond. But there is no evidence for abiogenesis at this point. Today we're going to look at, is the secret of life really written in the cell's DNA? That's what got me really excited about this topic, because I'm going to claim that there is a secret to life, and it is written in the DNA. And it's not only written in the DNA, it's being decoded. Ever since 2000, remember Bill Clinton saying, President Clinton telling the Human Genome Project, congratulating on discovering the language of God. My goodness, what does that mean, the language of God? That's a heavy thing. I'm sure he got criticized by the materialists for saying any language like that. But we'll find out that this is really a code, a language, things that are actually written into our own DNA. Number 4, does the evidence point to life being created by a mind? I'm going to claim yes in my presentation today, because the materialistic explanations don't work from last week. That's my analysis of my own data here. But you have yours. The idea of Socrates is look at the evidence and decide for yourself. And then number 5, is theism a creator, a legitimate scientific option? I'm going to claim yes if it has empirical evidence. I mean, it doesn't have to be an article of faith. Most of us may belong to a church or synagogue or something, and we believe things by faith only. I'm saying believe things because they're real. If they're not real, then maybe you should not believe them. So let's look at the empirical evidence for this stuff. Is there a scientific case for a creator? That's the topic today. Fundamental life, the fundamental basis of life. The most reductionist we can take it down to is to a single cell. One single cell. And there's actually life at a single cell level. It's called a bacterium. There's also life at the 100 trillion cell level, called you and me. Can you believe that? 100 trillion cells? And the cells, there's about 200 different types of them. They all communicate. Obviously, we wouldn't be here. We'd be going, blah, 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 blah. There's some coordination going on. 100 trillion cells. Look at that picture. That picture blows you away. That was, I think, last year. They put together, that's not an artist concept. That's an actual picture of what's going on inside the human cell, a cell. Every one of those little things called organelles has function, is doing something. And they're doing it rapidly, 1,000 times a second, for example. And we'll talk about that in January when we come back for part 2 of this, when I talk about the engineering that's inside the cell. Today we're just going to talk about the information that's in the cell. What does the cell do? It stores, it transforms, it uses energy for life. What is life? I mean, it's from storing and transforming energy. Well, it eats and grows. It multiplies. It adapts. So living things grow and change and develop as a result of cell growth and division. And DNA, this is key. DNA is the information that makes all this happen. It's the information that's inside the cell that directs it. It's the cookbook. Inside the cell is this little molecule, complex molecule, is the computerized information system. It contains all the information necessary to build and maintain the organism, whether it's a bacterium or it's you and me. The DNA determines all our characteristics of the living organism. And every cell has this same information. It's like all the cells, the soldiers have the information from the general. They all have it. DNA is passed on from generation to generation through heredity, and we'll talk about how that happens. Has a physical structure, has this double helix. I fell in love with this guy. Where's my engineer, Gail? He put this together for me.
Yeah, he just called and was unable to come, so.
Oh, darn. I was going to give him credit. I'm even going to show a picture of him here. I got this from Amazon, and I said, I want to put that together. I couldn't even put this thing together. I spent an hour trying to put it together. So I know an engineer, a mechanical engineer, Gail's husband. I said, can you put this together? We'll talk about that later. But it's double-stranded. It has 2 strands. And one of the reasons it's double-stranded is because one of the strands has to stay with the organism. The other one goes to the daughter cell when the thing divides. I mean, that's how has to reproduce, right? So it's double-stranded. And each strand, can you imagine, is the 25 thousandths of a breadth of a human hair? I mean, it's if I were to stretch all my DNA out just from one of my cells, it would be 7 feet. 7 feet long. And it's like a rope, though. Imagine a rope about that thick, and you try to pack it into your backpack going camping. That's how it's coiled up in there. It's coiled up into things called chromosomes and genes. We'll talk about that. Weighs 3 trillionths of a gram. I mean, and all that information is coded in this DNA. It's in coded form. Keep that in mind, coded form. What information are we talking about? All the information required to build the cell and grow the organism. So it's like the data bank. It's like your disk or hard drive on your computer. All that information is there. It's an instruction manual for how the cell is to grow. It actually directs it's like a mind. But you'll see this in a second. It's a recipe. Think of it as a recipe of ingredients and directions. You go to the kitchen to bake a cake, right? So you open up the book and it says, it says ingredients and it says directions, how to make it. So let's go to the kitchen and make that cell, right? Does that look familiar? How many of you have had that cookbook in your kitchen at one point in time? Yes, I figured, right? Julia was remarkable. I mean, here's her cookbook for ingredients and directions to make that dinner that you always wanted. Right? She created it. It's about so thick, right? A couple inches thick. It was created in her mind. Well, let's look at why you need a cookbook to create a cell, growth in a cell. Well, the first thing you have to think about is 1 million of your cells are dying every second. Right now. Boom, boom, 5 million. You just lost 25 million. I can tell, I'm counting. So fortunately, there has to be some replications going on somewhere, right? I mean, otherwise, it's never going to heal. You just fall apart, right? You just be like dissolved right in front of me. It's the information that drives the cell machinery to build the cell structure and its chemistry. Now we need this because, let's go back to this one. Of this 1 billion cells, 1,000 of them every second are skin cells. I did this to junior hires one time, and I said, look around you, you just lost a couple million cells, and they went, ew, yuck. And I said, but don't worry, because there's enough free bacteria right there to eat them all up. That got a second yuck. We're losing. I mean, I know. I scratch my face in the morning. I know what happens, right? I rub my bald head. I know what happens. So these replications better be happening, or we're going to be dissolving pretty quick. We're going to look at just one small component. Well, it's not small. It's a huge component, but it's only one component of a human body, and that's the protein of the cell. Now, proteins are very critical. Proteins build structure. They perform chemistry within the cell. It's absolutely necessary. And they're made up. This is a picture of a protein. Amazing architecture. It's a long string, like that, and it has beads on it. And those beads are called genes. Those genes are pockets of information about who you are, what your characteristics are. And those are the things that are passed on from generation to generation. And they get mixed. And you've heard that in biology class and so forth. But DNA provides all the information for making that protein, that long protein, and in particular, the genes. The cell itself reads this recipe. It's a recipe. And the cell machinery builds the required structure. Just like Julia's book here. If I went into the kitchen to make a protein, this is what I'd see. There's 20 different amino acids in it, directions. 3 directions. Simple to write them down. Very difficult to comprehend and research. But the first thing is to read the DNA information. So, all right, read the DNA information. Second is, using the genetic code, translate that information into a required sequence, the appropriate sequence for those amino acids. And then when all those amino acids are lined up perfectly, this one-dimensional string folds itself into that complicated structure that you see right here at the top, into a protein. And it's very, very, very specific. And that's how the chemistry works inside our cells. That specific cell or protein fits into another very specific protein, exactly like a puzzle. And if it doesn't fit, it dissolves. So there's an error or something, dissolves. When it fits, then it builds, just like a puzzle. 3 instructions. Extremely simplified diagram of what's going on. 3 steps here. Reading the DNA information, number 1. Then reading the genetic code, I'll talk about that, what this is in a second. This information then tells the cell machinery how to line up those amino acids. And when they're just the right size, boom, we get a protein. So number one is the cell reads the DNA instructions. Now, how does it read? What do you mean read? Well, it has a language. Can you imagine the cell, the DNA actually has a language? We have a language, right? There's 26 characters in it, 26 letters. Julia used 26 letters to write her recipe, her cookbook. Computers have a couple of letters, and how many characters are in a computer language?
0 and 1.
0 and 1, right, 2. But yet, all the computers, if you take anything in your computer, it all gets down to zeros and ones. All the information that Gail has on you back there is in the computer. It's a 0 and a 1. So 2 characters. You can spell out the world's information in zeros and ones, and that's what the internet is doing today. Now, the DNA language is different. It has 4, A, T, C, and G. Instead of 2 or 26, it has 4 characters in it, A, T, C, and G. Real characters. Now, what are these characters? They're chemicals. They're just 4 chemicals. They're called bases, A, T, C, and G. A, T, C, and G are 4 different chemicals, and they're arranged on the steps of the DNA spiral staircase. You see these colors here? Blue is A, T is red, C is green, G is orange. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections of that. 5 characters spelled out on that. Remember that. They're arranged on the steps of the DNA molecule. Now, here's the mind-boggling piece. There's 3 billion of these paired chemicals on there. Instead of 5, there's 3 billion. Remember that. They spell out all the instructions. Those 3 billion instructions are all spelled out on the spiral staircase. Now, here's how it goes. There's AT, they always bond together. There's chemical force that holds those 2 together, and there's a C and G. And the reason that has to happen is so that these 2 strands are the exact complementary of each other. So when you know the 3 billion on one strand, this strand is just the reverse, and it couples with it. So when the cell divides and splits, then this stays with the parent, and that goes with the daughter, and that's how reproduction takes place. Now, I want you to think of these chemicals, see this information that's along this, called the spine of the DNA. I want you to think of this like Scrabble letters. Now, what's interesting about Scrabble letters? You have 7 in your rack there or on the table. You can arrange them any possibility. There's no forces between those letters that force you into putting that information together. Except maybe a QU, you follow your Q, and even that rule's being broken all the time. Now, you can arrange those letters any way you want. So those letters then, A, T, C, and G, can be used to build a recipe book. Just like Julia used 26 letters of the English alphabet, and the computer uses zeros and ones to code all the information. All the language for building you and me is written in that DNA recipe book. It's a string, A, T, G, C, G, G, C, T, C, C, A, T, C. This is actually what you find when you go inside the DNA. Let's just take one of them, G, G, C. What does that mean? It's a word. The DNA operates by taking the characters and grouping them in 3s. Words, just like we take letters and put words together, put a space, the next word, that creates meaning. We create meaning by using those kind of grammar instructions. The DNA has these grammar instructions themselves, and here's how you interpret that. GGC is 2 chemicals G's and 1 chemical C. There's a table, a code, a secret code. Remember when I was a kid, I had a secret decoding brain, from Willie the Worm.
and he'd send me messages, right? If you watched and you bought the Milky Way bar or whatever else, and I get a message from him, and I go to my ring, and there I go, oh, every time I see a GGC, I look up in the code, and there it is, it's GLY. What is that? Oh, glycine. You know, Willie the Worm told me it was glycine. Now I know what he's trying to tell me. He's actually telling me some information through this code. This code is embedded in our DNA. And it's basically the same thing for all living creatures. Think of that. I'm 50% banana. At least that's what my wife told me. Where's Kelly? Oh, there she is. Okay, good. That was, you're hiding from me. No, you hear this thing, we're 99% chimpanzee or something like that, so I'm 50% banana. We're all some percent of something, I mean, because we have this common genetic code in us. So here's 3 billion characters long in this, written on the spine of this DNA, 3 billion characters long. And it's broken down into words, and the words then are interpreted by the genetic code. And this is, it looks like a pretty simple table, right? There's only 64 compartments here and 20 amino acids. So this particular combination codes for glycine. Another one codes for some other chemical. So again, reading and translating the information here, goes to the code, figures out, aha, there's the code. I put that group of amino acids in the right order, and when the right order is there, that thing folds into a protein, and voila. All of a sudden, my little scar is being healed. Amazing. Amino acid sequence specifies a particular protein. So these proteins are extraordinarily complex, they're irregular, they're three-dimensional, they're totally unique. And when they're built, then they are exact copies of what needs to be there for specific jobs. I couldn't help but think when I was doing research on this about the movie 2001. You remember when that was a big deal? We're beyond this now, but remember the monkeys were there at the obelisk, trying to figure it. And it's a picture, it's an image of trying to find out what is the secret to life. Where do they come from? I mean, the monkeys were doing the Socrates thing, scratching their head. The secret of life was somehow, we saw it inside the obelisk. Well, I found it, for me, what I found is it's in this DNA. Inside every living thing, we have discovered a universal language, ATCG, and a code that translates it. Now, languages and codes are information. You want to give yourself a headache some night or put yourself to sleep, try to figure out what information is. What is information? I mean, it's not physical. That's physical, but that's just a representation of the information. The only reason this is information is because you know the English language, you know how the English, the rules of grammar are there to pull it together. That's not physical. There's no material process that produces that. Even in principle, there's no. So I mean, chance plus time plus natural law is not going to produce information. Information, we do know where it comes from, though. It comes from mind. It only comes from mind. It comes from mind and ability to utilize the information. So you have to ask yourself, how did this information get in there to begin with? This is how I try to figure it out. I said, well, I'll just print it out. I'll just print out the 3 billion characters and go figure it out. You can take it to some smart guy like Ed here and say, all right, now what does this mean, these 3 billion characters? That's as far as I got. Just kidding. But Julia took all her instructions and put it in a 3-inch book. Mine started being pretty complicated after a while. This is actual print, how long it would take to print out the DNA information. I'm going to end up with the rest of it. I decided to stop before I even started because it's going to take a book 350 feet tall to print out, just print it out on my desktop computer, tall as the Statue of Liberty. So fast, now forward to 2000 with the Human Genome Project. This is when the president congratulated the director of NIH, who was heading up the program at the time. Today we are learning the language in which God created life. It's the instructions for specifying the proteins, just the proteins, in the human body. And it makes up about 2% of the DNA. So 3 billion characters, about 2% of those 3 billion are proteins, what we call genes, because they determine the genetic qualities that we pass on to the next generation. Now, our genes were decoded. When I say our, I mean for the human genome. That's what all the genes are called, the human genome composite. They started being coded and decoded in 2000. And we found that there's about 20,000 genes in the human body. But 98% didn't specify proteins, what they didn't code for proteins. And some materialism says that 98% is evidence against any kind of intelligence putting the DNA information into the cell. It says the 98% evidence for chemical evolution is in the cell, and that shows that it's what they call junk DNA. Here I have in my little cartoon here, I have 2 slices of junk DNA saying, just because you don't understand me, you're calling me junk. I'm not junk. But research has proved this to be wrong. Since 2000, we've been decoding the rest of the stuff on the DNA. We have about 80% of it now decoded. 80% of it. Guess what? It's not junk. These are specific instructions. They're regulatory instructions. They're monitoring instructions. So just like you would find in an engineering marvel. They're not junk. In fact, what the research is showing that we'll probably find function for this cell in all 100%. So that means that whole 350-foot high instruction manual will be understood. And that's what's leading to all the genetic engineering and so forth that you're hearing about today. So there's good research that's being done because we might be able to cure some specific diseases when we understand the instruction book. So we say, oh, we went wrong on baking the cake there. We take that part out and we'll put in the right sequence of letters, and then all of a sudden, zippo, we don't have that medical problem anymore. This project is called ENCODE. There's about 400 research organizations across the world that are cooperating in this ENCODE project, and they found the 80% of it is not junk, could well be 100%. This is huge evidence against materialism. Other thing we have to understand is, what is information? It's something other, isn't it? I mean, it's not material, it's not physical. It's represented physically, but it's not physical. Information transcends matter and motion. Materialism tells us that everything is made up of matter and motion, matter and energy. But information transcends it. There, I proved it to you. Is that important to you? Probably the most important thing any of us have. To be loved, right? I love you are the most powerful words in the world. Are they physical words? No. It's information. Information is communication. Information exchanges meaning between a sender and a receiver. Information is knowledge. Information makes order out of chaos. Before somebody put I love you on the beach there, well, there was just order and chaos. Sand scribbling around, waves coming in, rocks coming in, and so forth. There was no design or purpose to it, to that information. That message written in the sand was not written by chance plus time. I don't care how many trillions of years you're going to generate chance encounters of atoms. It's not going to happen by chance plus time. It's not going to happen by natural forces. Here's a bunch of natural forces coming in with waves, action, sand action, wind, erosion, so forth. Not going to happen. Only one way that you get information. Mind. Mind plus ability. Let me prove my case here. Be a prosecuting attorney here. Let's look at information and how it transcends materialism in the verbal area, with odd objects and with art. Materialism says that information is produced by chance plus time plus natural law. Let's put that to the empirical test. Let's make this a science project. Empirical test. Hamlet. Hamlet is about 30,000 words, about 150,000 characters of information. 150,000 characters of information. Now, if all Hamlet's letters were put into a Scrabble pile like that, what do you think? And we put them in a bag and we shook it up. Chance plus time plus natural law, would that ever produce Hamlet? Never happened. Never happened. Or is there a mind plus ability behind it? Actually, if there's a mind plus ability behind it, the DNA string of 3 billion characters of information is 40,000 Hamlets. 40,000 times 150,000 characters. To be or not to be. We can't produce that sequence by chance plus time plus natural law. Let's say you code over a trillion of years. Take the first 82 characters of Hamlet's soliloquy. I was going to memorize that for you, but I didn't think you appreciated it too much. I know Gil wouldn't appreciate me practicing. That could not be produced at the fastest random number generator in the universe, operating for as long as the universe ever existed. You couldn't produce even the first 82 characters, let alone 150,000 characters. Take another example. Let's take an object. I'll take an object, a computer, my Mac here. Now, science does something really cool. They do something called reduction. So you see something complex, and we all do it too, because we know intuitively this is a good way of going about it. You see something complex, I have no idea what that is, but I'm going to take it apart. Kids have this fascination, right? I'm going to take your radio apart, Dad. You are? Well, I want to know how it works, right? So science takes things apart. It's wonderful. It's called reductionism. So let's reduce a laptop to its components. And we can take it down to its boards. We can even take it down to its individual capacitors, resistors, and so forth, all the way down to its atom. Now, we got to put this back together again. That's always the hard part, right? What's the best explanation for it? Materialism would say, well, it's chance plus time plus natural law. So let's put them in the bag and shake them for a couple of billion years. Is that going to do it? Or is the mind going to do it? Let's take another thing. Let's take an object of art. Let's take David. Museum in Firenze, statue of David. Amazing piece of art, right? This is on the left here. This is how it started. A block of imperfect marble. I loved Michelangelo when he was asked how he did something so magnificent. And he said, "Well, I just chiseled away the part that wasn't David. That's all he did." That come about by chance plus time plus natural law, materialism? Or was there intelligent design? Was there a mind and ability behind chiseling that away? Here's Gil's husband, Gene. I asked him to put together this for me. So just take something simple like that. He's a professional mechanical engineer. He said, 1 minute I realized you could have rattled the pieces together in a box for billions of years and they would never have come together on their own. The DNA model had only 15 base pairs there, those chemicals bound together. The human strand has about 3 billion, each precisely positioned. The intelligent design demands intelligent assembly. So, in conclusion, now we're a little bit over, okay. What did we discover today? There are transcendent causes, design and purpose, in addition to material causes. We're just going back to what the Greeks told us a couple thousand years ago. Design and purpose, transcendent causes. Evidence for biogenesis, creation, is written into the living cell. The secret of life, information, is buried in that cell's DNA, and it's being decoded as we speak. Evidence points to life. Empirical evidence points to life, originating in a mind with ability, not materialism. And theism, that God created, is a legitimate scientific option. So, what direction do you think the evidence points for the origin of life in DNA? That's what we do here. Ponder this kind of thing. Materialism, chance plus time plus natural law, or intelligent design, mind plus ability?
This is revolutionary. I mean, science has demonstrated empirically that the living cell possesses a language, a vocabulary that directs life within the cell. The DNA molecule demonstrates that a mind has given living creatures design and purpose, not just the appearance of design. No longer do we have to deceive ourselves into believing, as many other scientists say, quote, there's no design in nature, it's only the appearance of design. Design is real. We now have a scientific basis for believing that when we look at living creatures, that they are really designed, as our intuition and common sense tells us that. No longer do we have to make up stories, as Richard Dawkins does, about our genes are selfish. What does that mean? How can a gene be selfish? And that our genes create us in the process. I don't know what that means. I do know what intelligence means. I do know what design and purpose mean. At the headquarters lecture next month, I will show how this DNA intelligence drives the growth and replication of living cells through remarkable engineering construction. And I'll be filming that too. Then give me a couple weeks to prepare a video cast like we're doing right now on the front end and the back end, and I'll post it to our Socrates website. Now, make sure you're subscribed to the Socrates at Saddlebrook website so you won't miss being notified when this is available. Now, until then, keep being a Socrates thinker. Think for yourself. Keep an open mind. Be careful not to accept the assumptions and particularly the ideology like materialism just based on authority. My authority. There is no authority. Listen to the evidence. Make your own decision, especially when it's not supported by evidence. Study. Decide for yourself. Follow the evidential trail. Which way does it point? Design? No design. Wherever it leads you, that's where I want you to go. I'm Stuart Orr. I'll see you right here next time for Origin of Life, Part 4.